let's talk tonight about the preliminary budget for the 2014-15 school year. When we look at the school budget, there are many aspects and elements of the budget that are part of that discussion, and so we look at it from these different aspects. We look at the educational programs, curriculum and instruction, special ed, extracurricular and athletics, that would fall under education. We look at staffing. We meet with building principals in the fall and in December. We talk about staffing. We look at our instructional staffing. We look at our classified staffing. Elements of technology. So for instance, in this coming year's budget, the IPA, the installment purchase agreement, will pay for things including maintenance and replacement of smartboard projectors, wall mounting of our projectors, laptops and other portable electronic devices that students will use, infrastructure that will accommodate upgrades to our emerging wireless network. So those are things that are part of our technology budget. With facilities, many of you know that our new middle school wing, the addition will be coming on board very soon, and that's an exciting addition to our community, something to be very proud of. We also have our field and track project that will take place this summer and fall, and the repointing project at the high school and middle school. So those are some of the facilities aspects of this budget that we'll be looking closely at and following. Transportation is a part of our budget as well. Obviously the bidding to ensure that we have the best provider at the best price. We have a consortium in Eastchester that includes the Pelham, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe districts, and that consortium is part of private parochial and special education school busing. We do that through Montauk Bus Company. So that's again part of our budget development, as is the debt service. And one of the things that we are really very grateful for in the district is we maintain a AA2 Moody's rating, and that helps us with interest rates when we borrow. That's a favorable rating, and that is a very big help when we go to borrow money for projects. And the state and federal mandates are part of budget development, and I'll speak a little bit about them as this presentation moves on. So, you know, we have the instructional program of our district, as was mentioned before, and we know that we have a robust program, very rigorous, and we know that our assessment scores and graduation rates and such, college acceptances, are really among the best in the county, the state, and in the country. We've talked in the past couple of budget discussions that we've had with the community about elements of that strong program. We've talked about how our grades 3 through 8 state assessment scores in math, ELA, and science are among the top 3.1% in all of New York State. We talked about how 100% of our 8th grade students who take algebra and earth science regents exams reach proficiency on those exams, how the middle school was named a Common Sense signature school for the digital citizenry course, and how the middle school is also now adopting new global technology programs in our new labs. At the high school, over 90% of high school students who take Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Trig, English, Global History, U.S. History, Biology, Chemistry, and Physics regents, over 90% of those students achieve proficiency levels, the highest percentage that we've seen since the 1990s. The passing rates in this past school year for high school students, percentage of those who passed their respective courses, was the highest rate since 1999. For the 8th consecutive year in our high school, over 90% of graduates pursued a college education. And of the 19 different advanced placement exams that we offer at the high school, our students outperformed the national and state average scores on 14 of those 19 exams. This spring, we'll have 509 advanced placement exams taken by our students, 125 of whom are eligible to take courses for college credit, and 85 of whom are involved currently in a computer programming course. Now, as we move into this next budget year, as challenging as it is, and with those challenges that we will speak to tonight, you should know that there are some things that we're doing beyond the current program. For instance, we'll be adding an advanced placement course next year in computer science. That will be for these students who are following up on the course they're currently taking. We'll be revamping the middle school AIS program. That's the Academic Intervention Services program, a revamping of that in middle school. We'll be expanding the STAR diagnostic reading to grade 7 next year, and that will encompass then grades 2 through 7. And we'll also be piloting the Reading Wonders program next year in grades 4 and 5. The district offers dozens of these extracurricular and athletic activities, and just the extracurricular activities alone, clubs and such, there are 32 at the high school and 14 at the middle school. A very large number of our students are involved in these programs, and this is an important piece of what we teach, as we saw tonight. And our sports programs, as we know, offer students of all interest and skill levels the opportunity all the way through intramurals to interscholastic sports. Among the extracurricular activities, we're proud of all of them, but we have things including Science Olympiad. We had 71 students last year who were nominated into the National Junior Honor Society in 8th grade. We have a great performing arts program that includes Players Club and Jazz Co. We have clubs in art, Spanish, Italian, French, math, science, business, and National Honor Societies. We participate in Model Congress, Academic Challenge, and the National History Bowl. And of course, we're so proud of all of our athletic teams. Just recently, our high school boys team participated in the Section 1 championship game at the county center. And all of our fall athletic teams and coaches volunteered this year in Eastchester Youth Sports Day. Again, continuing a great tradition in our community and school for service, many of our students volunteer their time to support charities through student government. And even in our early to mid grades, we have character education programs, including Rachel's Challenge, Kindness Follows Caring at Ann Hutch, Greenvale Pride at our own Greenvale School. Again, integral in the education of all of our children. Some of the community service examples that we have in our high school include the community blood drives for the Red Cross. We have a full school implementation of the Dignity for All Students Act in our schools. We have charity fundraisers at all levels, K through 12, and many of our service organizations include things such as Habitat for Humanity, the Human Rights Club, Operation Smile, and this month we have Dancing with Our Stars, and that supports Gilda's Club of Westchester, which is a cancer support group. So again, many fine examples here of community service, and that's an important part of our program as well. So we take a look at all of the elements of our program, both curricular and extracurricular, and each year as we evaluate those programs and we look to move forward into the next school year, we have to look carefully at them. And one of the impacts certainly is the tax levy limit that we have to account for, and all of that goes into the program that we propose for the coming year. And the challenges are ones we've spoken about in the past couple of meetings. The rising expenditures, for example, and these are approximate costs. We're looking at New York State teacher retirement system costs this year, additional costs of about $400,000. We're looking at health insurance costs across the district, again, over $400,000. Social Security, approximately $71,000. Workers' comp, about $35,000. Those four examples alone account for $900,000 of expenditures beyond this school year. We look at federal and state mandates, and we often toss that word about and those terms about, the mandates, and if you ever stop to look at the list of what these mandates are, you'd find that there are pages and pages and pages, there are hundreds of them. But just to give you some example of the kinds of mandates that we're referring to, things that include comprehensive daily attendance and period attendance in our schools, the 5-year facilities plan, a district-wide safety plan, academic intervention services, state testing and the reporting that goes with state testing, our APPR program and the professional development that's accorded to that, Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA compliance, translation services that we have both for state testing and even at CSE meetings. All of these are just examples of some of the unfunded state and federal mandates, and these are part of our budget. These are things that we're expected to do, we're required to do. The funding has to be picked up here at the school. We've talked about depleting revenue streams. We've talked about the maximum allowable tax levy, which for us this year in Eastchester is 3.21%. We've talked a great deal about state aid, which accounts for about 5.17% of our district budget. And I want to thank so many of the people in our community who sent letters to Amy Paulin and to George Latimer, asking them to please reconsider the gap elimination. That gap elimination adjustment in this year's budget will account for nearly $715,000, that's the projection, of aid that we will not receive. And over the past 5 years, that figure has amounted to $3.7 million of state aid that has not come to Eastchester. That's a significant amount of money, and that's a huge part of our revenue. And also we've talked about how our our tuition for special students will be down this year, and that's really because many districts are now bringing students back to educate them in their communities, and so we're losing some revenue there. This is a powerful slide because it says that in the past 2 years, we've had the obligation of reducing spending $1 million in 12-13 and $675,000 last year. And I want to just take a minute to talk about some of the things that have been part of these spending reductions over the past number of years, because there's a cumulative effect here. We've lost teaching positions, 10 teaching assistants, librarians and library clerks, music teachers, middle school department chairs, custodial and clerical staff, technology support, administrative positions, guidance counselor, monitors, 2 after-school buses, a middle school, high school youth counselor, a social worker, and transportation to our arts festival. These are the changes that occurred prior to this year, steps that we've tried to take to reduce spending. That's the approximately 60 positions here that are listed. The important information moving forward into the 14-15 years on this slide. We see at the top our current budget of $75,726,000, and we see the proposed budget of $76,919,403. And as said before, the maximum allowable tax levy increase this year will be 3.21%. On this slide, you can see how that revenue is generated in terms of percent, and with little surprise to you, the three largest areas, taxes 89.2%, again impacted by the tax levy cap. The state aid, 5.17, greatly impacted by the gap elimination. Tuition, as we said before, will be down this year. So our 3 largest sources of revenue are less than we would like them to be, and that's the breakdown of how Eastchester's revenue occurs in the district. We look at our expenditures, and here we see payroll and benefits at just slightly over 80%, facilities, transportation, support for instructional programs, for non-instructional, debt, and transfer to capital. So that's the expenditure slide, and that's how we see how our monies are spent in that regard. So how do we get the $1.35 million that we were talking about over the last couple of meetings? How do we get there so that we can move forward in this year's budget? So the preliminary budget that I present tonight includes these reductions. You'll see the word FTE in many categories. It's a full-time equivalent. That's the acronym for full-time equivalent. It means that sometimes it's a real one person, and sometimes it's a piece of different people. So an FTE is a full-time equivalent of a teacher, a teaching assistant, or a support staff member. So we're looking at reductions of 7 FTE teachers, 3 teaching assistants, 5.2 FTE support staff. We're proposing for this year moving forward that Eastchester withdraw from the Collaborative High School Consortium, that we reduce our school building, central office, and athletic supply budgets beyond the reductions that were in place even earlier, and that we look for savings in reduced printing and mailing as we move forward, and we rely much more on electronic versions of this and try to save some money, because we're in a point now that it's critical that we do that. I'd like to break down for just a moment the reductions that you saw on the previous slide. The 7 FTE teachers includes 1 from the Collaborative High School, it includes 4 at our elementary schools, and it includes 2.0 middle school / high school. The 3 teaching assistants, 1 from the Collaborative High School, 2 from our elementary schools, and again, as we said before, 5.2 support staff. How that breaks out in terms of staffing in our building, here you can see the cumulative total sections in our buildings. Waverly will remain at 20 sections into next year. Ann Hutch will reduce from 19 to 17. One of those sections is by attrition, and 1 is by larger class size. Greenvale will be maintained at 23 sections. So our total sections across the elementary schools will go from 62 this year to 60. And this is the class size projection based upon the reductions that were presented. So it's 23 at Waverly, kindergarten, 22.9, grade 1. Ann Hutchinson, grade 2, 26.3, 22.8 for grade 3, 25.5 in grade 4, 25 in grade 5. In Greenvale, grade 2, 25.3, grade 3, 25.5, grade 4, 23.6, and grade 5, 25.8. The Waverly is an estimate. As we say, the kindergarten registration is ongoing, and so we're looking at projections based upon previous years. At the moment, it's trending a little bit lower. We'll know better at the end of this month how that will factor in, but we're projecting 10 sections. So the question is, if this budget does not pass on May 20th, what would occur? Well, the district would have an opportunity to put forth another budget for voter consideration, a second budget. However, if the second budget also fails to pass, at that point, the tax levy drops to a 0. That would mean that the district would have to find $3.47 million in reductions, which is 2.13 beyond the reductions that we're incorporating into tonight's preliminary budget. And of course, at that time, with cuts as draconian as that might be, we would be looking at the elimination of non-mandated programs, as you see there, including sports, extracurriculars, music, art, and guidance, and it would most likely result in approximately 30 positions that would have to be eliminated in order to reduce 3.47. Our budget vote and trustee election is May 20th from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Voting this year will be at the high school gym and also at Garth Road Community Center for those Garth Road residents. As we do the hard work that's ahead in looking at these reductions and maintaining the best programs that we can, we do so with a sense of optimism, but we also do so with a sense of reality. And we know that this is quite a challenge. Remembering always what our mission is, remembering the students that we serve, I think it's fair to say tonight that this is a budget that reflects the urgency of a difficult time, where revenues are limited and declining, where expenditures are rising, and where continued deep cuts in staffing are required to balance these realities. It's a time when our enrollment is on the rise, when the challenges of implementing the Common Core state standards and the accountability assessment models of New York State collide. It's a time when the rollout of these initiatives is actually under very heated debate in Albany. The reductions in this budget are real, they are deep, and they are impactful. The necessity of reducing our current budget by $1.35 million to stay within the maximum allowable tax levy is a daunting challenge. So again, I repeat, this tonight is a budget that reflects the urgency of a difficult time.